Hello, and welcome to my channel, Naughty Gnome Crafts. My name is Sarah, and you can find me as Naughty Gnome on Instagram. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me today, and it's time for another Friday Sews. If you are somehow unaware of the Friday Sews hashtag, it was started by Jen from Today in Jen's Sewing Room, and I always leave a link in the description box to her channel. And it's just a catch-up where people in the sewing community talk about their week of sewing, what they've made, what they're working on, what their future plans are, and a little bit of chat. So for today's video, I have two finished things to show you. I have one work in progress. I had made a muslin, and then I'll show you the project and the fabric that I'm going to use. And yeah, I think that's it for today. But before we get started, I'll just let you know that I am wearing a Love Notions Rhapsody blouse, and I'll insert a picture of the finished top so you can see what it looks like on. And it's very comfortable. It's been really hot this week, so I've just been trying to stay cool. And today it's not quite as hot, and so I'm just pairing this sleeveless top with some ready-to-wear skinny jeans. So let's just get into my finished objects of the week. The first thing is I finished the Simplicity 8875 that I was working on last week. Let me grab the pattern envelope to show you. So here's the pattern cover. I just think that this is such a beautiful spring dress, and Whitney of Tomcat Stitchery just made this dress, and it looks really beautiful on so many different body types. I've seen several examples on Instagram of this dress, and I'm so glad that I made it. So last week I was telling you a little bit about that my dress was cursed, but I'm happy to report that I think that the curse is gone. Just to give you some details, so I made view B, which is what the model is wearing with the short sleeves. I made a size 8 in the shoulder, and then I graded to a size 10 at the hip. And the reason that I did that is because I have another dress that's it's not the same, it's a little bit of a similar silhouette where it's quite fitted through the upper body, and it doesn't flare out until you get closer to the hem. And I found that with that dress, I made a straight size 8 in that one. It was also a Simplicity dress. And it's fine when it's on, but it's a little bit hard to wiggle into to get it over my hips. So I thought for this time, I would just size up to a 10 in the hip to make it a little bit easier to get it on and off. And I think that that was the correct decision. As far as modifications go, I did shorten the skirt piece. So I left the ruffle the same, but I shortened the skirt by 3 inches. And the fabric that I used is a rayon crepe that I got from fabric.com. And now let's take a look at the actual finished dress. So I am the first person to admit that I can be hypercritical sometimes. I don't know how my poor husband puts up with me, but I think that sometimes I can get sort of lost in the weeds and like bogged down in details, and I don't see the big picture. So last week, as I was telling you all the problems that I was having with this dress, and I didn't like the fabric, etc. Well, when I actually finished this dress and I put it on, I immediately just was like looking in the mirror and thinking, this is so pretty, and I'm like swishing around in it. And I just feel like that is when you know that something is a success, when you put on a garment and it makes you feel like $1,000,000. And so all of the negative things I was thinking about this dress just kind of went away, and I was able to see the big picture, and I just absolutely love it. So this floral print, originally when I got it in the mail, it just wasn't what I was expecting from what I saw online, but I do think now that it's in the finished dress that it's just the perfect match for this pattern. It has a lovely drape and movement to it, and the little ditzy floral I think really works well with the style. So the dress is supposed to have fake buttons. Well, they're real buttons, but they're non-functional buttons. You're supposed to put non-functional buttons on the front, and then this has a little pleated sleeve, and you're supposed to put buttons like at the little pleats on the cuff. But I omitted that because the dress just didn't really seem to need it, and the print is so busy that I just figured that the buttons were gonna get lost. And if I don't have to put functional buttons on a dress, then I'm not gonna do it. I just don't wanna do that. So I left off the buttons. I had a little bit of a hard time deciding when I was cutting out the dress, like how much I should shorten it. So Normally I avoid midi length dresses because they tend to cut me off at the widest part of my calf and it looks terrible on me. And the reason that I know that is because when I was only buying ready to wear stuff, I'm so short that things that are supposed to be knee length would often end up cutting me off at the widest part of my calf, and they just looked absolutely horrible. It just has this effect of making my already short legs look even shorter and just sort of widening my body. So I avoid that length at all costs. But let me go back to the pattern envelope. Generally, my options would be like just below the knee or ankle length. But to do just below the knee, I would really have to change the proportions probably of this skirt and the ruffle, because the ruffle has a slit at the front, so it's open. So you can imagine if you shorten it pretty dramatically, like the slit is going to be showing off your parts. And I did not want that, obviously. And then the ankle length, I didn't want to make it super long because I just thought that it would, with the print that I was using and the design of the dress, that it might look a little bit matronly. So I started to think, what if I do midi length, but just make like triple check and make sure that it doesn't hit me at the widest part of my calf. If it just hits, you know, like an inch or an inch and a half below that point, I think that I would be okay. And that's what I ended up doing. And I think that it turned out really well. I'll insert some photos of me wearing the dress. Now I will say that I think that the dress looks best with heels. I tried it on with some pointy toe flats, and it's like, okay, but I think that it really looks better with heels. But I'm really happy to have discovered a new length that I can add to my dress and skirt repertoire that I do think it really looks nice and it works for me as long as I don't have the length cut off on the widest part of my calf. The only other thing that I wanted to add about this dress is that I should have done a small bust adjustment. I am 40 years old, I'm gonna be 41 in July, and I finally broke down and decided that I should stop buying bras at Target and I should get bras that actually fit me properly. And so long story short, I ended up ordering like 12 different bras on the internet and I sent most of them back. But I did finally find some bras that fit me. But I've found that a lot of my garments are loose in the chest because the bra is the proper size when it used to be too big. So I need to remeasure my chest, and I probably need to start paying attention moving forward with my garments as far as making small bust adjustments, because I have found that like in this dress, it has gathers underneath the bust, and this area, like in the chest, it's a little bit roomy. And so I just need to be mindful of that moving ahead in the future. But when I wear this dress, and especially because it's such a busy print, I don't think that it's super noticeable. It doesn't bother me, but just for optimal fit in the future, I need to start paying more attention to those details. For my second finished make of the week, I made McCalls 8097, which is the oriamccalls hashtag. And I made view A, which is what the model is wearing. It's a mini skirt. This was part of my June plans, and I have to say that so far, I've not been great with adhering to my plans. I think that probably because I'm doing a no buy, I just want to make whatever I feel like making, and if it's not in the plans, like it's okay. But this one was. So this was a crinkle rayon fabric from Stylemaker Fabrics. I love this print. It's so pretty. And I really like the way that the skirt turned out. I made a size 8 with no modifications. It was super, super easy to put together. And I will warn you that this skirt is extremely short. I didn't have to alter for length at all. And so if you have longer legs than I do, and let's face it, you probably do, if you want to make this skirt, there's a strong likelihood that you might want to consider lengthening it. The finished measurement length is 17 inches. So if that gives you any idea how short it is, it hits me, you know, probably 3 inches above my knee, which is perfect for me. But I do think that overall that it's extremely short for an average sized person. It has an elastic waist, and what I think is really nice about it is that the front and the back are identical, so it doesn't matter when you put it on which way you put it. Either way is the correct way, so that's always nice. But yeah, it has an elastic waist, and I did stitch down the elastic just so that it won't turn in the casing, because I hate that. And it has an exposed ruffle here, and then it's just a little bit of a layered ruffle. And yeah, it has a lot of movement. I haven't taken any model photos yet, but I already have so many different styling ideas with this skirt. I just think it's gonna be so cute for summer. And the only other thing I wanted to say about this one is that I did have a little bit of problems again, like squeezing out all of the pattern pieces, even though I ordered the amount of fabric that the pattern says that you need. I think that moving forward, if I'm making something out of rayon, I just need to order a little bit of extra fabric, because I do think that it shrinks. When I receive the fabric, I wash it and I dry it, because I want it to shrink. If it's going to, I'd rather have it shrink in the fabric stage than after you make the garment. And I just think that rayon is so likely to shrink that in the future, I just need to order a little bit extra. So yeah, that's McCalls 8097, super happy with it. And I'll be back in a second to talk about what I'm working on now. So in my June plans, I was going to make a knit romper, but I think I decided to change that up slightly, and I wanted to make a woven romper instead. And I found a free pattern online that is actually very similar in style to the New Look romper that I made last month. And I'll put a link up above in case you're interested in checking that one out. But it's just a very simple wrap jumpsuit that has an elastic waist, so it's easy to pull on. And I just really liked that style, so I wanted to try it in a woven. And the pattern is called the Celine Jumpsuit, and as I said, it's a free pattern from the fabric store online. If you're not familiar with the fabric store, they specialize in linen, and they have tons and tons of free patterns that they show in linen. And so I happen to have a lot of linen in my stash, so I wanted to try it out. Now, originally, I was going to cut it off into romper length, but eventually I decided, you know what, let's just make the jumpsuit. Let's try it and see if I like jumpsuits. I did really surprise myself by loving the romper that I made, so maybe I will like a jumpsuit. You know, the worst case scenario is I don't really like it and I'll just donate it, or I could cut it off into shorts if I really hate it or something. So yesterday I put the pattern together and I made a muslin of the pants. I still have a lot of issues with trying to fit pants, and I had to make a lot of changes to the pants pattern pieces, so I wanted to sew up muslin just to make sure that it was going to fit before I cut into my fabric. So I used some more of leftover bed sheets and I made a muslin, and I will insert some photos here so you can see what the muslin looks like on. I feel like I just do this for you guys because I love you guys, because of course the muslin, like wearing a bed sheet, it looks terrible. But I'm reasonably happy with the fit changes that I made, and I'll just quickly show you probably at least the back pattern pieces, because I made a lot of changes to it. So here's the back pattern piece. The main thing that I had to do was I had to add a very large extension so that this piece comes out farther. I had to add an additional 2 3/4 inches in width here. And I also added a 5/8 of an inch to the front crotch extension as well. And I don't think that I've ever really explained in my previous videos what happens if I don't make these alterations. And I'm sorry if it's TMI, but basically what happens is I end up with camel toe in the front and I have a giant wedgie in the back. And it's just because my body shape is, I'm pretty long from back to front. And so I just need this extra room to go between my legs to have enough fabric to wrap around my legs. And if I don't do this, it all ends up getting pulled into my rear end and creates a giant wedgie, which is extremely uncomfortable and also unsightly. So having to add this much fabric does make it really hard, because I have to then remove that extra fabric somewhere else in the pants, otherwise it'll just be way too big overall. And this jumpsuit, just in general, it has a ton of ease. For the chest, the waist, and the hips, for the size that I was making, I'm making the smallest size, which is size 0/2. All of three of those measurements are 40 inches. Like it's just a straight rectangle and it's 40 inches. And even in the hip, which is my largest measurement, that's 5 inches of positive ease. So you probably will see in the pictures that I inserted that it's really, really roomy and a little bit baggy in the rear end area. But I think that is just the design of it, and I do want it to be relaxed and comfortable, so I'm just gonna go with it. But yeah, there is quite a bit of ease. But anyway, it took me a little bit of maneuvering to get the pattern pieces so that I could incorporate this extra that I needed here, but not have it be so wide. And I did end up making a change after I made my muslin that the side seam wasn't hanging straight, so I just shaved off a little bit off the front and added it to the back so that hopefully the side seam will be more straight. And the other thing that I did to alter the muslin after I tried it on was I forgot that you need to make sure that you match up your crotch pieces so that they meet in the middle and they don't have like a weird point. I did have to kind of level that off a little bit. The other thing that I did was it seemed like it was okay as far as like ease in the calf area, even though the legs do taper, but I did have to shorten the jumpsuit by 5 inches in the leg in order to make it that cropped like ankle length that the original design is meant to be. So I didn't make any changes to the top part of the pattern because that seemed fine, but I did make quite a few alterations to the pants. And I'm ready to cut out my jumpsuit now. I was originally going to use a solid navy Brussels washer linen that I got from StyleMaker. It's a linen rayon blend. But as I was pulling it out of the stash, I remembered that I had bought this, which is 100% linen, also from StyleMaker. It has this little like pinstripe detail. And I was thinking that this would actually look really pretty as that jumpsuit and be just a little bit different. So I think I'm gonna try to use this. I'm not 100% sure that I have enough fabric. So, I mean, I will find out shortly if I do or not, but I just think that this would be lovely in the Celine jumpsuit. So that's all I've been working on this week. I do just want to give a quick shout out to my friend Myra Lorraine. She is so sweet. She always leaves the nicest comments on my channel, and I really love watching her channel. I've actually been watching her for a number of years. She just did a bra tutorial, which was really thorough, and it actually almost made me want to sew my own bras, but not quite, because I'm just not really interested in lingerie. But it was very detailed, and I appreciated that she took the time to do such a detailed sew along. And yeah, I love watching her videos. So if you haven't heard of her, I will leave a link to her channel in the description box and check her out. So that's everything that I have for you this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate that you take time out of your day to watch my videos, and I will see you next week.